talking about. I'm just going to leave it to the pro. He's going to tell you all about what he does. Casey, over to you.
Hello, hi everybody. My name is Casey. I'm from Studio Omoshiroi. Today, firstly, I'd like to thank you everyone for coming to the workshop today. Today I'll be presenting the basics of cosplay videography. Before I start, I'm just going to show you a video that I did this is a little what we do every time, every year, every convention. We do again, let me introduce myself. I'm Casey from Studio Omoshiroi. I do cosplay photography and videography, and well. So just a little backstory about myself. I started cosplay photography in 2009. I just happened to get into cosplay videography in late 2010. And so let me start off. Where did I get my inspiration? I was finding means to getting more coverage over events. I find that cosplay photography is also interesting, but I find I needed to find something fresh, more than ideal. So basically I went to YouTube, I saw this guy, his name is Axon, and he did probably the first cosplay video around the world perhaps. Let me show you here. So these are two guys that started seeing the trend. First you have Axon, the top one, and then you have MLZ, the bottom one. So we make videos basically. Basically I look up to them a lot. I get my inspiration, and both of them are using Steadicams like this one, and also the handheld version. So why video, not photos? So for me, it means that covering the event using videos would be a better idea for me, because I can capture the essence of the event because it's fun. If you see the photos, it's mostly cosplayers, but you don't get the feel of the event. So that's why I started to pick up videos. Also, I not only do event videos, I also do the music video, cosplay music videos based on the original PVs that they posted on Nicodoba. Okay, very briefly, to start off with cosplay videography, you don't really need a lot of gear. What I do have here is my Steadicam and also a handheld version, but you don't really need these to video. You can also always use a tripod if you want to, or handheld. It works. And basically here I have the examples. From my left here I have a Steadicam, tripod, slider, and the regular handheld stabilizer. So it's really about creativity. You don't really need to use a Steadicam. For me, it's a means of getting my shots done. I want certain specific poses or moves that I like cosplay to do. But you know, you can always just use a tripod. You can get the same feeling from it as well. Here are some examples. There's this guy, Beat Down Boogie. He uses a handheld stabilizer, but also at the same time he uses a camera rig. So what a camera rig is actually positioned on your shoulder, and then you don't really have to move a lot. As you can see in the top example, he doesn't need to move a lot, but his cosplayers need to act out on what the characters do. And the bottom one, Natalam, is from Bangkok. This is how he uses his slider to make cosplay music videos. As you can see, it goes side to side. It's really smooth. And also he uses a handheld stabilizer to give him the panning motion. Okay, next, even more examples. Here you can see we have Kuroko-san. He is from Japan. He only uses tripod to get his videos done. He mainly specializes on cosplay music videos, and with a bit of creativity you can use photos in your videos as well. They bring out the feels of the video. And last but not least, the bottom one from Sprinkle This, Singapore. What they do is just stop motion videography. This is probably the hardest aspects of videography for me. It's basically taking out the photos and putting them together in a video. As you can see here, they have sort of like their macro scale video, which they have not really seen a year ago. But they're working on it. Just wait for it to come out. Okay, now I talked about camera. mean, talk about gears, what do you need to stabilize your video? But what about cameras? Basically, for me, any camera will do. You don't really need a DSLR to shoot. You can use a point and shoot, a prosumer, basically anything that can take video. A little backstory is myself. I started off with a Pentax K7. It's probably the first, one of the few DSLRs with video capability. But there was one problem. It had no manual control. So basically, you had you couldn't set any shutter speed, aperture, ISO. You have nothing to go with that. You only had the auto exposure balance, auto exposure lock, where you can only balance based on the scene. But yes, there are some really great ones in Malaysia. They just use the hand cam and the stabilizer. It works really well. I forgot what's his name, but he basically did a military video, which was really cool. So that on basically what do I use? I basically have here my Canon 6D ultra wide angle lens and also my Steadicam. Like I said earlier on, you could use any camera, but for me this is my choice, Canon 6D with an Canon ultra wide angle lens and of course my Steadicam. For reasons that I use this because Canon 6D is also my workhorse for photography. So it also takes 720p 60 frames per second, which I use it to slow down my videos. You can also use 30 frames, 24 frames, depending on your creativity. The reasons that I chose this lens, because it zooms internally. The lens doesn't extend, which is good. It doesn't throw the weight off on a Steadicam, like for instance. Now the camera is balanced on this Steadicam. If for some reason I have a lens that extends a lot, it will probably lean forward, or something shorter, it will lean backward. So it throws off the balance of Steadicam. It's really important for a stabilizer. It's really crucial to get the balance. So as you can see, once I hang it there, it doesn't move. It's pretty steady because I balanced it already. So for reasons why I use a west-based stabilizer instead of the handheld stabilizer. Earlier, when I started, I used something like this, a much smaller one. But as you know, when your gear starts to be really heavy, it really taxes your wrist. So for me, I have a little health problems concerning my joints. I had to upgrade to a west-based one instead. There are certain limitations with a west-based stabilizer though. Firstly, because you are severely limited by how long your hand can extend from the west, because there will be a third arm that holds the Steadicam. For a handheld version, you can go as far as here. You can go up all the way straight. It goes up, down, depending on how you hold it. For a west-based one, you can only go as far as your arm, as the third arm, which I've been attached here, but it only can go to a certain degree of movement. So you are quite limited in a sense. But don't let that stop you if you're getting one. Also, these two essentials, really essential. You need lots of memory cards and also batteries. because if you don't have enough, generally typical video from a DSLR takes about, I think, 10 minutes to take up about 4 gigabytes, if I'm not mistaken. So I made this mistake here right now because I had a broken memory card today. So the camera that's recording in front of me is actually quite small, so I have limited recording time.
Okay.
Yeah. Beginner's mistake. And yeah, we need batteries as well, because one battery for a camera DSLR, it consumes quite a lot of battery. So it's preferably you have at least 2 or more. For me, I carry 2 for events like Comic Fiesta. One battery will last me about 2 to 3 hours, but this is not continuous. For a continuous video, it probably will only last me less than an hour, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, bring lots of memory cards. It's very important. Okay, moving on from camera gear and camera now. I'd like to talk about three main aspects when you take a video. Mainly concerning the white balance, shutter speed, aperture, and also how to frame the shot. For white balance, I would really not recommend you to use auto white balance. The color shift is, there can be color shifts when you use auto white balance, like say you're moving from a white light to a yellow light and to back. You have this weird blue cast that you can transition from either of these this lighting. So preferably shoot in manual white balance or any preset you can. If you're familiar with your camera, there should be some white balance available in your camera. For mine, Canon 6D, it has a manual white balance. I don't know if you can actually see it, but for me, I always set mine to 5500, which is white point. Works well for me, and during post-processing, it saves me a lot of hassle when I calibrate my video. Okay.
Bring your whole bag.
Okay, shutter speeds. For videos, there is actually a rule that you have to use. It's called the 180-degree shutter rule. This corresponds to the frame rate of your camera video that you're currently recording. So, for example, if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, your best in a 180-degree shutter rule, it's at least 1/48 of a second. But for DSL, we don't really have 1/48, so we typically use 1/50 of a second. And for example, shooting 25, you use 50. In 30 frames per second, you use 60. Or you use 60, use 120. But rules are meant to be broken. There are certain times where you need to break the rule. Actually, shooting in 180-degree shutter rule will give you the smoothest video output. However, For example, maybe if you're shooting in a very low light situation, you probably need to drop the shutter lower than what is typically double of your frame rate. So, for example, if shooting in a very low light areas, probably like a dark cloud or something, you really need the light and your ISO is already maxed out. You would probably drop it to maybe 1/30th, 1/40th of a second to get back at least half or one stop of light. Or if in case that you are shooting videos that you like to do super slow-mo, have you seen any videos with people doing really slow-mo, like 1,000 frames per second or more? Yeah? Yeah, slow-mo guy. So basically, for our cameras, we kind of achieve that physically. We don't really have 1,000 frames. So what we do is we interpolate frames. We use software such as Twixtor to get our results. So if you use Twixtor, it's recommended that you ramp up your shutter speed to at least 1/1000 and above. So each frame that you shoot is actually sharp, and when you interpolate those frames to 1,000 frames or more, it will give you a really nice smooth effect. You can use slower shutters as well, maybe 1/120th if you're shooting 60 frames, but it will not give you the smoothest results. So your mileage will vary. Also, aperture, depth of field. Everybody knows what depth of field is, right? So if you're shooting on a daytime, let's say daytime on outside, you could typically shoot it maybe somewhere like on a basic 24 frame per second. You'll be shooting at 1/50th, and your apertures will be like f11 or probably more. What I do to keep these, to keep down, to maintain my aperture to smaller, I use an ND filter. This is a 3-stop ND filter from Hoya. So basically, let's say that I'm shooting at f11, I can bring it down to f5.6. So it gives me a little bit more depth of field, more shallow, so I can do more background separation. You could also use, there are square filters, square ND filters that you can actually put in front of the camera. Those work well as well. Right, framing the shot. This one actually is quite subjective. Framing the shot for me, you can do it photography way. You can do rules of third, your golden compass rule. For me, when I get a video shot, I try to keep it not too centered, but not quite quite closer to rule of thirds, but it really depends what you want to see in your video. Like the one I shot earlier, I needed details from the cosplayer. Those cosplayers with really great, awesome costumes. So you'd like to take all the details of their armor, perhaps, or their sword, or something like that. So for me, details, I like to see details on the costumes or your armor or something. So let's say if I like you have if you have a lot of details, I like to go really close up and pick up those details. Also, like point of interest, again, it's quite similar. Depends how you want to shoot it. You like her because she looks attractive, or maybe because she has a great costume. So it really depends, and up to you. Really, you can just let your imagination run wild. You don't really have to go by the rules for video, but you can do anything you want to achieve the results that you like. Okay, the last portion of videography. After we talked about hardware, we talked about camera, we talked stabilizer, we talked tripods. What is really important now is actually your computer. If you have a slow computer, you're gonna have a bad time. It's going to take a while to import these files, and As I said earlier on, if you're shooting a video, it's going to take up a lot of space. So be prepared to have at least a couple of hard drives ready, just in case. As I said earlier, let's say if you're shooting an event, a couple of maybe 2-3 hours will take 30 gigabytes. If you shoot 10 events, you have 300 gigabytes already. That's quite a lot of space. Fortunately, hard disk is not too expensive these days, so stock it up. And have adequate processing power. This is actually, the programs that I run actually uses a lot of processing power. So if you have a modern day PC with at least a quad core or more, would be preferable. For me, I'm running on a 8-core Intel processor. It works well for me, but still lags a little sometimes. So it really depends on the resolution that you're shooting as well. For me nowadays, I'm just shooting at 720p, 60 frames per second. Previously I did 1080p. It's 50% more texting to your computer because 50% more pixels in your video. Next part, choose a video editor. For PC, generally I like to use Premiere Pro. For Mac, there's a couple of choices as well. You can use iMovie, you can use Final Cut, you can use Premiere Pro as well. So see what you like. Last one, choose a song. Songs for me are really important to get the feel of my videos. So say if I needed something to bring out the mood, and let me just move to one. So here's the one I made for Culture Japan for Comic Fiesta. I used the very rather upbeat music. I shot this entirely on a slider and a tripod. No fancy movements here. So this was the mascot car that was shown in Comic Fiesta last year, if you remember. I forgot to mention earlier, but lighting is actually really crucial in the videos. For that video just now, I had a big 1000 LED panel to light up the car and the cosplayers as well, because that scene was really near pitch black. So no camera settings could probably save it. Right. Anyway, so see, song plays a big part for me. So you should try to get a song beforehand. If you can't, you can always find one after. For song choices, it's a bit more difficult because if you upload your videos to YouTube, you probably get a copyright infringement most of the time because it's a really popular song. So what I would suggest to you guys, probably can use a cover song perhaps, or a remix. It works. or if you really can't use those songs, you can try to push up the pitch a little. Then it'll avoid YouTube's copyright. What do you call that? The copyright system. Okay, here color grading. Of the camera, it's usually quite neutral, or at least I have set my camera to a very neutral color. So it's mostly quite gray. It's quite dull. You need the video to pop out a bit, so you color grade, and as well as I mentioned earlier, white balance. In scenes that probably are fluorescent light, it will be quite yellow. But for me, I can just change that when I color grade it. And I also do slow-mo. I slow down the videos of mine. Let me just show you what I have here. So here I have one video from Anandaki. I'm actually remoting home, so it's going to be a bit laggy. So here I have a motion and some video clips that I've already edited. Let me see if I can. As you can see here, I've set my clip durations to half the speed, 50%. So it does the slow. It gives a nice slow motion. But it really depends on how you want to. Depends on how you want to do the shot. Sometimes you don't really need to slow-mo all your videos. It depends on the scene or how do you want to bring out the best of the cosplayer's costume. Sometimes if you do it too fast, you miss out everything, like going a little too fast, or perhaps if it's too slow, you could actually increase, you could cut frames to make it go faster. So here for me, when I color grade, I usually tend to use Magic Bullet suit. For example, if I wanted to grade this video, I would typically use this.
Scale down.
Look at this. So Magic Bullet suit helps me to speed up my workflow. For example, it's like quite yellowish here. You can see the scene here. It's a little warm. For videos, not as easy. It's just pulling the white balance slider. That doesn't quite exist in the editing software. So you have to grade it manually. You have to grade your highlights, shadows, and your midpoint. So Magic Bullet actually lets you set it to. It does help you to give you that slider, but unfortunately, videos that are coming out from our camera are not raw. You can't change the color as easy as it is on the camera. Well, I mean when you're shooting photos. So what I would typically do, I would actually do my three-way color grading. So as you can see here on my right,
still use that. The three-way color grading L1.
As you can see here on my right here, there's the highlight, midtone, and shadows. So depending on your editing styles, you would like it to be more a cool color, or perhaps of a color that you like. For me, I would prefer to keep it as neutral as possible. But it is possible to edit right now. I'm not sure if I can give you because it's quite laggy.
Very tired.
Can't really show.
I'm very tired.
Unfortunately, I'm actually remoting home, so I can't really tell the color from here. But maybe you can find some of these softwares. Also, if you don't have any plugins, the built-in ones work fine as well.
Yes, you were like hell. No, the building.
There is the color correction here. These are default presets from Premiere Pro. There's also a three-way color corrector here. You can also use that. It takes a little more effort to edit video, as I said earlier on, because the color is already graded into that video. You can't change it as easy as you like it as like a raw photo. Unless you really have a high-end camera, then you could do that. But that's going to cost you maybe 20,000 US upwards. And the last few, I'm also you have to bump up your contrast if you like. And things that I
can't see my eyes.
That's it for me for doing post-processing. There isn't much on my end unless you like to try some visual motion effects. That would be on a different level. I'm currently learning those, but I probably won't be doing them for a while. So anyway, in summary, don't be afraid to experiment. How you would like to do your video is really up to you. There is no guidelines to say, hey, you have to do it like this, or hey, you need to use this kind of stuff to get your results. No, you don't really need to. I actually started off cosplay videography in animangaki. All I took was a tripod head and I went around running. It was pretty shaky, but the camera had a built-in IS, so it didn't shake too much, fortunately. So yeah, so don't be afraid to use tripods if you want to take videos, or handheld if you can, preferably with a camera with IS. Otherwise, you could go on with a handheld stabilizer or a full west-based Steadicam. So that's pretty much it for my workshop. If you have any questions or would like to ask, go ahead and shoot. Go ahead and shoot.
West.
That's a good question, actually. For me, I like mostly upbeat songs, but I prefer them to be in English sometimes. It's alright to use game anime songs as well, but I try to find those upbeat songs that usually your typical anime songs may not have those, but you can use them too if you want. Any other questions? Anything technical, any technicals, or perhaps simple questions, anything, go ahead, shoot. How to direct models, right? You have to make sure that the cosplay model is quite comfortable with what you're shooting. Can I get Angie over here to come over here? Angie.
Go, 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 go.
So when you shoot a video, it really depends on the model. Sometimes we have a cosplayer here that's experienced, like Angie. She will just like okay, I want you to shoot, I want you to video me in certain poses. So Angie would start off with some poses and you would go around and video her depending on what you like. Let me just pick one. My camera is broken at the moment, so I won't be able to take any videos, but I'll just roughly show you how it's done. Although sometimes your model may not know what to do, basically when she's in character, but she's not sure or she's probably shy, you gotta speak up what you want to see from her. Sometimes, okay, Angie, I need you to pose in such a way that I want to get the shot. So you just have to tell her. If she's not comfortable with it, then you could just probably work it out. Perhaps maybe, okay, maybe you try something that you like, then I'll try something that I want to achieve. So that's how we get this done, basically.
Okay, go away, go away.
Right. For me, when I do videos, it's actually totally manual. Currently, I don't think there's a camera that autofocus fast enough when you do a video. So for me, having for me when I shoot videos, I mostly depend on distance scale here. So I just average maybe if a model is maybe no more than 1 meter away from me. I try to keep my distance between 1 meter. So most of the time it's in focus. Or if you have an ultra wide angle lens, it makes life easier, much easier, because there's literally no depth of field. It's very deep. So you have quite a leeway to play with. Also, aperture and shutter speed settings, like I mentioned earlier on, I like to keep it 180-degree shutter rule. So it's typically double the shutter, your frame rate. Also, there's one more thing about shutter speed that I didn't mention earlier. If you're shooting in a fluorescent light, it flickers. It flickers because your shutter speed is either above what we call the electrical pulse. For Malaysian, it typically flickers at 50 Hertz. So you have to keep your shutter at 150, typically, or lower. Any more you experience flicker. Fortunately, there's no fluorescent lights here, so you're pretty safe. And for aperture settings, it's really up to you. As long as you can get exposure right, I would just go ahead with that. Typically, I would use the ND filter if I'm outdoors, just to keep it a little more depth for me. Any more questions you would like to ask? Technical, personal? Go ahead. And
No, stretching.
Okay.
Alright, thank you very much, Casey. Big round of applause, eh?